It has been more than a decade since a full-time Cup Series rookie won a non-weather shortened delay race, but that streak came to an end today in the most unlikely of ways. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. On the road again at the moment. I'm actually in Tennessee right now getting prepped for this Wednesday's All-Star race, which I will be at. Super excited for. I'll be shooting a video and everything. But before we get too excited about the festivities, all the exciting new details and new experimental changes being made to this year's All-Star race, we have to talk about today's race at Kentucky. Now, today's race was really a story of two completely different races. I'm going to talk about the racing in general. I'm going to talk about some of the most notable storylines. Obviously, we're going to look at the top finishers, and we're going to talk about Cole Custer, who broke through to get his first career NASCAR Cup Series victory. A huge and historic day for a number of reasons. And don't you worry, I will be putting this race on the Groovy gauge at the very end. But to start with, I really don't know where to start with this race because the beginning was very different from the end. I'll just say this, the very beginning of the race, I would say the first 2.5 stages weren't super exciting. Had some good moments. I thought the racing wasn't terrible. It was better than some years we've had at Kentucky, but ultimately what this race kind of determined was that Kentucky is not a good racetrack for NASCAR. We already kind of knew this. I mean, since the Cup Series started racing there since 2011, we really haven't seen many exciting races at Kentucky. I thought, honestly, last year's race with the current rules package was one of the more popular races, mainly due to the exciting finish between Kurt and Kyle Busch. But ultimately, Kentucky Speedway has not been a fan favorite at all. It was a 1.5 miles that was added to the schedule right during kind of the beginning stages where people started to realize that short tracks and other tracks were a little bit more fun and that we didn't need more 1.5 miles on the schedule. It was a bad choice to be added to the schedule in 2011, and it's obviously still a bad choice here in 2020. And it doesn't matter what rules package we put on this racetrack. In fact, this very weekend, the Xfinity Series ran 2 races at Kentucky with low downforce, a much smaller spoiler and actually a tiny bit more horsepower than the Cup cars have, and both of their races featured a lot of single file, strung out racing. It was extremely hard to pass, and when 2 cars did get side by side in the Xfinity race, you often saw guys spinning out and big wrecks happening. We saw tempers flaring in the Xfinity race because of a lot of these wrecks that were caused by just 2 drivers trying to run side by side and not being capable of holding onto the race cars because it's just that unstable. Look at the Cup Series race today. Once again, hard to pass single file, but the Cup cars have huge downforce with the big rear spoilers and a little bit less horsepower than the Xfinity cars. Really, the only difference between the Xfinity races and the Cup Series race today is that in the Cup Series race, drivers weren't wrecking as much. You still couldn't get side by side and complete passes easily. That was true in both the Xfinity and the Cup race. The difference was in the Cup Series side of things, guys weren't wrecking as a result, at least not until maybe like the last restart or two. You saw some contact. So a lot of people are quick to blame the 550 horsepower, high downforce rules package and say that's why the first 75% of today's race was boring. And I just don't agree. I think Kentucky is an extremely difficult track to have good racing at, regardless of rules package. Since we've been there since 2011, we've seen multiple types of race cars, many different rules packages, and honestly, aside from last year's race, which got mostly positive reviews, I can't think of many Kentucky races that anyone goes back and looks at and says, dang, that was a good race. In fact, I can't think of any. I saw some people on Twitter pointing out the 2015 Kentucky race. Yeah, it was better than most, maybe. Still not a race anybody looks back at and really remembers. Does anyone remember the 2015 Kentucky race? I mean, other than the clips I saw on Twitter today, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that one. Nobody's going back and watching replays of the 2015 Kentucky race. So that's my point. Rules package wasn't perfect today, but it's a Kentucky problem, not a Cup Series 550 rules package problem in this race specifically. The hot sun combined with the fact that this track is a 1-groove track across all series that raced at this weekend, it was a 1-groove track. That's always going to cause bad racing. And the different rules package kind of determine how it's a bad race, but it's never going to be a good race. Nobody could pass. Trucks, Xfinity, ARCA, Cup, nobody could pass, and they all used very different rules packages. The common theme is that Kentucky Speedway is a 1-groove track, and it's not a good racetrack. If SMI is actually able to get Nashville Fairgrounds refurbished, back on the schedule in the next few years, Kentucky should be the first one on the chopping block. A lot of people are going to point to Texas. Fine, take one of the Texas race dates away, because that's another 1.5 miles that is not nearly as good as it once was. But Kentucky should be at the top of the list without a doubt. It's a racetrack that is not popular among fans. It's one of the lowest paying races in the NASCAR Cup Series schedule. Get it off the schedule first. It should be the first track to hit the chopping block, in my opinion. Now, like I said at the beginning, though, this was kind of a story of 2 very different races. The race ended with several restarts, some chaos, some drama, some wrecks, and that's what I want to talk about next, because now let's look at the top finishers and we'll talk about some of the dramatic moments from those final laps. So on the 3rd to last restart, I believe, you had Jimmy Johnson restarting in 3rd. the inside lane. You had Brad Keselowski in 5th, right behind him on the restart. Keselowski got a huge run, pulled out to take Johnson 3 wide. Johnson moved down to block. It was too late. Johnson went spinning through the grass, hurt his track position, ultimately hurt his finish. He was in the top 10 most of the day. Let's just get this out of the way. It was Jimmie Johnson's fault. Brad Keselowski said in the past that he's not going to lift for people who make late blocks. It was a late block. Jimmie Johnson was not clear. He was in a tough spot, because he either goes down and tries to block Keselowski and maybe tries to run Keselowski to the grass, maybe he makes it work somehow, or he stays in the middle there, loses his momentum, and goes into turn 1 3 wide middle and likely loses a few spots anyways. His chances of winning the race at that point were basically out the window the moment Keselowski got to his rear quarter panel. It just sucks, because Jimmie Johnson, man, he had another really good car today. Looked like he could build some positive momentum his way going down the stretch here in the regular season, and he's, again, on the playoff cut line right now, and we'll talk more about that when Cole Custer comes up. So he needs the points. He needs to take the top 5 if he can get the top 5. Losing the top 10, losing all that track position, not good for Jimmie Johnson late in these races. But that was the third to last restart. The second to last restart, Kevin Harvick was restarting third, second car in the inside lane, and he was able to take the leaders, Blaney and Truex, 3 wide on the initial start, got clear, and that's how Kevin Harvick. And let's talk about Kevin Harvick for a moment, because he had the most topsy-turvy day of anyone. Kevin Harvick has been the hottest and most successful Cup Series driver in recent weeks. He won at Pocono, he won at Indianapolis last week, and he is on a roll. But the first part of today's race, he was off the pace significantly. He fell back outside the top 20 during stage 2. Midway through this race, Kevin Harvick looked awful, but they made adjustments on it, got those late race cautions, worked their way back up through the field, and then Harvick made a great move on that second to last restart to get the lead. Truex was hounding him, but then another caution set up the final restart, and Kevin Harvick was in the catbird seat, the preferred lane, the control car on the final restart, and it wasn't enough. On the final restart, it looked like Kevin Harvick was going to be able to clear Truex going down the backstretch. Harvick said in his post-race interview, Truex sort of misjudged perhaps slightly, kind of like what Kyle Busch did to Chase Elliott at Darlington a few weeks back, and Truex almost spun Kevin Harvick down the backstretch racing for the lead. That set up side by side going into 3 and 4. They both washed up the track. That's what allowed Ryan Blaney to get a run on the inside, what allowed Cole Custer, who had a decent run going most of the day. He was a top 10, top 15 threat, came on strong late, much like he did in Indianapolis last week, but this is what allowed Cole Custer, the rookie, to get such a strong run around the outside, and that's what propelled him to the lead on the white flag lap and ultimately gave him the victory. Really surprising to see two veterans, two of the best drivers in the field, Kevin Harvick and Martin Truex Jr., put together such an unorganized and just amateurish restart, from Truex misjudging the gap and almost wrecking Harvick to then Harvick washing up the track significantly and allowing Blaney and Custer to make a move on them. Just bad moves all around. Of course, Blaney hitting the drain on the inside apron the same way, I think, was it Biffle a few years back or Keselowski a few years back hit the drain there and caused a huge wreck. That, of course, wasn't their fault, but just a chaotic final 2-lap restart. It was fun to watch. A 4-wide pass for the lead as the flagman is waving the white flag. I mean, that's outstanding. That is quintessential NASCAR right there. You just don't see that in other motorsports. I mean, name one motorsport, major motorsport, where you see at least once a year, because that happens almost every year. We see a big move like that. Usually it's reserved for like Talladega or Daytona, but name me one other motorsport where you see a 4-wide pass for the lead and it's not the top story of the weekend. It's not the #1 most shown replay, because people are replaying the Jimmie Johnson spin. They're replaying the Harvick 3-wide move. They're replaying the entire last lap, not just that moment. I'm just saying, that was quintessential NASCAR, watching Cole Custer rocket around the outside with the momentum and take advantage of the veteran drivers making the mistakes and Blaney making the mistake as well to get the win. Let's talk about Cole Custer now, because I've given you guys kind of the final couple of restarts. That's where the action really was saved for this race. But let's talk about Cole Custer getting his first career win. I mentioned just a couple days ago, I did a video where I talked about all the drivers on and around the playoff bubble, and I mentioned Cole Custer, even though he was in the mid-20s in points. I mentioned you guys earlier last week that he's coming off a top 5 run, his best run of the year in Indianapolis. The Stewart-Haas cars, we've seen it with Harvick. We saw it with Eric Almirola today, leading a lot of laps and winning the first stage. The Stewart-Haas cars are the best they've been all season long, and even Cole Custer, an inexperienced rookie, is starting to take advantage of it. So I told you guys on Friday to watch out for Cole Custer. He's an inexperienced driver, but his car is good enough to put him in the top 5 from time to time and take advantage of wild scenarios like this. Of course, I didn't see what we saw today coming whatsoever. I didn't really think Custer was going to get a win this year. I just thought he'd be in contention for it. But anytime you're lurking in the top 5 in one of these late race restarts, and give Custer some credit. On that final restart, all the focus was on Truex and Harvick up front, almost wrecking. But keep an eye on Cole Custer going 3 wide around the outside in turns 1 and 2, using that momentum to drive up into the top 3, and of course being in the right place, right time when Harvick and Truex and Blaney got together. Cole Custer set himself up well by getting a strong restart and by obviously having a good enough car to be in the top 10 to begin with. Sure, he didn't dominate this race by any stretch of the imagination, didn't lead. I think he led a couple laps during green flag pit stops, but didn't lead laps in any significant way today, hasn't led laps in any significant way all season long. So it feels kind of like a fluke victory. Sure, take it for what it's worth. But like I said at the very top of the show, the last time a rookie driver running for points won a race in the Cup Series, that wasn't rain shortened, mind you, because of course Justin Haley won last year, but he wasn't running for points. Chris Buescher won in 2016, was running for points as a rookie, but that one was fog shortened. It's been over a decade. It's been years. I talk about it all the time. Rookies in the Cup Series these days just do not win. Even the most talented rookies that you put in the best equipment, like Chase Elliott, took him 2 years to win. Ryan Blaney took him a year to win. Eric Jones took him a year and a half. I'm not going to go down that list again, but some of the most talented rookies we've seen the last few years do not win their first season. But Cole Custer, part of the Xfinity Series Big 3 a year ago, gets the win here today. Second week in a row, he had top 5 speed, put himself in the right place at the right time, and this week, had the great restart, had the great move in the final lap there to make it happen. Congratulations to Cole Custer. And if we look at the top finishers here, of course, Truex and Harvick still got top 5 finishes. Matt DiBenedetto, who was strong early on but faded and kind of worked his way back up there. 3rd place finish, probably the best speed I've seen out of Matt DiBenedetto's team since Vegas at the beginning of the year, where they also ran like top 6, top 7 most of the day. So that's encouraging. Also, you see Christopher Bell, the next highest finishing rookie. Christopher Bell's another driver I mentioned on Friday that you might need to watch out for because they're showing speed here as the weeks wind down, as the weeks continue on. They're top 5, top 10 threats almost every week now. That's a Toyota. Obviously, Bell wasn't in position to win today's race, but keep an eye on Christopher Bell. I would not count him out here down the stretch. Almirola, I mentioned, led a lot of laps. He ends up finishing 8th. Another rookie in the top 10, Tyler Reddick. So a solid day for the rookies. Fox kept showing that graphic where no rookie, obviously we've only raced at Kentucky like 10 times, but no rookie outside of Eric Jones has ever finished inside the top 15. Jones was 6th in 2017. That's the best finish by a rookie. This track eats up rookies. Rookies can't do anything here. Obviously, a rookie won the race. You know, some circumstances allowed it, but you have several rookies there in the top 10. Good day for the young drivers. I said that at Indianapolis as well. So the rookie drivers this year, as we kind of expected, being the big 3 from Xfinity last year, have impressed and are continually impressing almost on a weekly basis. So that is really good to see. Denny Hamlin finishes 12th, much like Kevin Harvick. You know, Hamlin's been running up near the front, contending for wins weekly the last few weeks. He struggled as well. Not quite as bad as Harvick struggled, but unlike Harvick, Hamlin's team was never really able to figure it out. He ends up finishing 12th. Kyle Busch, his teammate, you don't even see in the top 20. Kyle Busch had a roller coaster of a day. Started on pole because of the random draw, led a couple of laps, but quickly lost the lead and quickly lost the handle of the car. And then they had a shock failure at one point. He was really never in contention. Had a great save at one point, but Kyle Busch, is it time to panic yet? I mean, he has no wins, no playoff points, and we are halfway through the season, more than halfway through the regular season. And I know when the playoffs come around, if he just wins a race at the right time, he moves on, no big deal. But having 0 playoff points, as guys like Harvick, Hamlin, Truex rack them up, Logano, Keselowski, as they rack up playoff points, that's going to come back to bite Kyle Busch, a guy who you have to believe is thinking championship or bust. Anything outside of a championship 4 appearance is a disappointment for Kyle Busch. Honestly, anything outside of a championship at this point is a disappointment for Kyle Busch. And right now, it looks like he'll be out in the round of 12. If you ask me, the way they've been running and the fact that they have no playoff points, he's out in the round of 12 if the playoffs started tomorrow. That's just my opinion. He'll make it through the round of 16 because he's Kyle freaking Busch, but he is not going deeper than the round of 12 the way they've been running, the mechanical failures, the inconsistency in general from Joe Gibbs Racing. It's almost time to panic for Kyle Busch fans. I know he's still going to make the playoffs. He's likely still going to win this year, but this is not the Kyle Busch that we have come to know in the last several years. So fair to be concerned about Kyle Busch, and days like today where the team just wasn't on it at all, not good. But there you have it. Those are the top 20 finishers. With Cole Custer winning today, that shakes up things on the playoff cut line. He was 25th in points coming into today, but with the win, he jumps up to like 9th, I think, now on the playoff grid because of this win. Win your in system, y'all. I like a lot of things about NASCAR's current playoff format, playoff system, however you want to call it. I'm still not a huge fan of the win and you're in. I mean, Cole Custer has been mediocre to bad for like most of this season. He's only started to figure it out the last couple of weeks. The fact that he's already locked in ahead of a lot of these other drivers, I still don't like. Does not sit right with me, but It is what it is. I do have my limits, y'all. I don't love every gimmick that NASCAR's implemented, and I hate that the word gimmick is automatically a negative thing. The word gimmick doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. There are good gimmicks. Gimmicks can be good. I want to kind of eliminate the stigma around the word gimmick. That's like my new mission. I don't know why. As the weeks wind down, once I'm back in my normal studio, we'll start to look at the playoff grid on a week-to-week basis and see how it's changing. I know Jimmy Johnson's going to be right up against the cut line. Eric Jones is still below it with another bad performance today. So a lot of big names and big teams on that cut line. We'll take a look. And wins like today from Cole Custer are going to completely shake things up. There's still some good cars back there that could win these next in these next 9 races and shake things up even further. But now, with that all being said, we've covered a lot. Let's put this race on the famous Groovy gauge. Now, this is a very difficult race to rate, to gauge, if you will. Like I keep saying, the beginning of the race and the end of this race were two completely different stories. The first 2 or so stages were not very fun to watch. It was hard to pass. There were some interesting storylines, some passes for the lead. You had Martin Truex Jr. coming from the back, getting up into the top 10, top 5. So there were some things to watch, but ultimately it wasn't that much fun. It was not a very fun race to watch for the first 75% of it. That being said, the final 3 or 4 restarts were wildly entertaining. I know. It'd be great if this racetrack or this rules package or a combination of both were able to present great racing throughout the run, but that's just not possible. At the end of the day, no matter what rules package is used, the restarts will always be more exciting than the average long green flag run. That's just the way it is, because you got all the cars bunched together, 3-4 wide racing consistently. It doesn't matter what package, restarts. There's a reason. I say this before. When you go to a race, oftentimes, at least races I go to, fans will all stand up right before the restart. As the pace car pulls out, fans in the stands will all stand up. You don't see fans stand up like that at any other point in the race aside from maybe the last couple of laps. And it's because they know restarts are when crazy things are known to happen. So restarts are always entertaining. Doesn't matter the rules package. But that being said, with this rules package, the restarts are absolutely phenomenal consistently. So the last few restarts were great. The jostling for position, the fact that while it seemed 3rd place or 5th place was always at a disadvantage, guys like Kevin Harvick proved us wrong at times. Cole Custer around the outside showed that the outside had speed. The restarts were a lot of fun and were very unpredictable. The control car never ran off with it by the time they reached turn 2. They were always side by side. There was always someone in 3rd or 4th making a run, making a comeback. So that being said, those restarts at the end of this race were phenomenal, and it is going to bump my score up just a little bit because I think a great finish is more important than a great beginning, if you will. I'm going to give today's race at Kentucky Speedway a 60% on the Groovy gauge. It was a little bit above average, and it's mainly due to the last 40 laps of this race. The drama with Jimmy Johnson making a late block, getting turned by rival Brad Keselowski. That was dramatic, no matter how you slice it. Kevin Harvick's phenomenal 3-wide restart to take the lead and set himself up for the final restart was also shocking. He earned the nickname the closer right there. We hadn't seen it in a while, but there he was. And then the final restart with Truex and Harvick both making mistakes, opening the door for Blaney, who then makes a mistake, and then ultimately opening the door for the rookie Cole Custer to come flying around and take the win away was absolutely exciting. That was classic, great television, the final 40 minutes or so of this race. So that boosts the score up a little bit. I'm going to give it a 60%, but let me know what you guys thought down below. Lots covered in this race. There was a lot more to talk about after a Kentucky race in July than I thought there would be. It was hot out there. You could tell the drivers were slipping and sliding. I think high temperatures do not help with this rules package, and they certainly don't help at Kentucky, but it is what it is. The fact that we've been able to escape the 2 Pocono races, Indianapolis, and now Kentucky, and I would say none of those races have been just straight up bad. Well, one of the Pocono races was but for the most part, Pocono was okay, Indianapolis was decent, Kentucky today at least had a great finish. I would say the fact that we've escaped this stretch of races, and we still have Texas a week from now, so fingers crossed Texas can continue the streak going, but we're in the middle of a streak of the most dull tracks in NASCAR right now. And so far, none of the races have made me want to gouge my eyes out. So I'll consider that a win. We got the All-Star race at Bristol in a couple of days. It's going to be absolutely fantastic to break things up. But there you have it. That's all I've got for today's episode. Thank you all for watching. Subscribe if you are new. We talk about racing almost daily on this channel. So follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Big thank you to my Patreon supporters as always. Could not do this show without the support I get from each and every single one of you. It's thanks to you guys that I'm able to go to Bristol later this week and film a video there. I'm going to show you guys what it's like at a NASCAR race during a pandemic. NASCAR is trying to add more fans to the stands in the next few weeks, next few months. This might give you a little bit of an idea of what you can expect. I'll be there with my mask and everything, so it should be a good time, and it wouldn't be possible without your support on Patreon, so thank you all a ton. That's all I've got. Hope you all have a great rest of your weekend. I will see you all very, very soon, and I will see you all at Bristol in a few days as well. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody.